When I started doing college basketball, the feedback I got from some people was, when you do replays, why do you always do it from a negative standpoint? I was like, what do you mean? My boss at the time, a guy who hired me, his name's Dan Steer. He now works at NBC Sports Network. He said, look, we never had a guy who says whose fault it is on a defensive breakdown. I said, well, listen, Dan, I love you, but that's the way that basketball people look at tape. Is you try and figure out what went wrong. And you point it out. That's the only way you clean it up. Your fault. Your fault. Your fault. Sometimes it is the coach's fault. Sometimes the player's fault. Sometimes it's not the player who's on the ball. Sometimes it was somebody else who missed an assignment, and then the guy who's actually guarded the ball is late trying to cover up for somebody else. That happens. And then sometimes it's, hey, there's nothing wrong defensively. It's just a great shot. Guy just made a great play. Sometimes it's an offense taking advantage of a defense's rules or defensive scheme to better benefit their own offense. But there is, by and large, usually somebody to blame. Now, I have a belief here. See, when I tweet about something, broadcast about something, radio or TV, there are people who believe that I carry this inherent bias because of my various experiences, right? Whether it's growing up in Southern California, whether it's when I went to Notre Dame or how Notre Dame ended, or whether it's going to Oklahoma State. For example, if I were to say something negative about Oklahoma State's basketball program, 0-2 in conference play, they lost to rival Oklahoma on Saturday. A fan would say, well, you're bitter because you didn't get the job. Well, look, I wanted to get the job. I really wanted to be the coach of my alma mater. But my analysis still holds true. I have the ability to disconnect with any of my past baggage, if you will, and just tell you what I think. But I don't think most people think that way. I don't. There are times in sports when fans believe that we are as tied to the programs we played for. Well, when I said that, look, I think Baker Mayfield's acting like a clown. I think he's a very good player, but he's acting like an idiot. Staring down his former coach. Well, that's because you went to Oklahoma State. No, it's because he's acting like an idiot. I haven't lived in Oklahoma or played for Oklahoma State in 18 years. Now, the difference is most people especially in that state or in that region, like if you fly into the Midwest or the Southwest, you get on a plane, you will wear the color of your school and never wear the color or logo of your arch rival. You just won't, right? You just won't. The ties that bind I'm not bound by those. But I understand that's most people's biases. I think that most people carry a negative connotation to blame. We're just not used to being told it's your fault. It's your fault. But in sports, that's how you get to the root of the problem. That's how you actually fix it. Look, you can tell me that it's a lot of people's fault that Baltimore played as poorly offensively as they did. Well, they didn't adjust to the personnel package. Well, the offensive line didn't play well. These things are true. But Lamar Jackson dropped the football like 3 times in the first 5 minutes of the game. Was that the offensive line's fault? Do you think they would have allowed him to drop back and pass more if they felt more confident in his ability to read a defense and make the proper reads and proper pass? Of course not. They know what they have. This is no different than Seattle. Oh, why didn't Brian Schottenheimer, he's so conservative, look, Seattle's offensive line sucked all year. They've run the football to cover it up and then kept it close and then let Russell Wilson try and win the game late. That's their pattern. And it almost worked in Dallas. It did. And in Baltimore, it's been, hey, we're going to win the game with defense, and if Lamar can run it, great. If not, we punt it and play field position. And guess what? It almost worked. And I'm not saying that people who want to do harm to athletes who screw up are right. They're not. Like we don't want the Bartman deal. We don't want Bartman's the guy who was at the Cubs game back in the '03 playoffs, who ball was coming, is right on the wall, and he swiped it away from Moises Alou, and it ended up, and by the way, is it Alex Gonzalez, who's the shortstop of the Chicago Cubs, the very next play, booted a ground ball. Like, that wasn't Bartman's fault, but fans look for somebody to blame. You don't want it so that somebody can't show their face at a stadium, but it is fair to point out that Lamar Jackson sucked yesterday. He was bad. Deshaun Watson wasn't good. It wasn't.